and they thought that the memorandum of understanding was condition tied to the site plan, and therefore that's why the notice of violation went out.
But the other one gets away with it because it really isn't a noise.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure maybe there's something
one was
on
a
that
building
plan versus
violation.
this plan.
One was a building violation, not a legal violation, as in a police violation.
I just wanted to understand the difference here. Yeah. All right.
Well, how would I go about requesting that private agreement not be part of my site plan, even though it's not referenced? Well, I'm sorry, it is referenced. It's not a condition of approval on my site plan. How would I go about doing that? That would be my preference, because it sounds like the easiest course of action.
Now, Jay, the only way to find that is if we could find the notes if it was conditional, right?
There's nothing I can find.
There's nothing you can find on that.
Right.
So we don't know the intent back then.
Right.
I mean, the memorandum of agreement basically talks about conditions for approval of the site plan application. It's clear right there, terms and conditions for approval of Romano's site plan application.
My take on that was what they were looking for in exchange for not making it more difficult. I didn't necessarily see that as a condition.
There were waivers that were being sought, and as I understood the language says that they won't object to the waivers if these conditions are met.
And as a correction, it's not on town letterhead.
Oh, we just said at the very top, it says State of New Hampshire, Hillsborough County, Litchfield Planning Board. So,
I mean, it says Romano's and the abutters agree that the following terms and conditions shall be carried out in good faith and shall be made part of the Litchfield Planning Board's terms and conditions of approval of the Romano site plan application and proposed site plan. So maybe that's, why town attorney took the position that, this is part of it.
It could be.
Well, considering they're no longer abutters, if I was to request that not be incorporated,
does that carry over to the next abutter? Does it stay with the property?
That's a good question.
But whether it does or not, as a private agreement, it's to the discretion of the planning board what conditions they want to place,
right?
On the site plan.
Right.
So it would still be the purview of the planning board to change those or amend those if the planning board wished. It wouldn't need it wouldn't need the consent of those abutters.
Because only 21 points were made onto it, and the other one referencing noise was 0.3. There's no 3 on it.
And it really says, it's really saying take reasonable steps to prohibit the playing of loud music. It doesn't mean you're prohibiting it.
You have to define loud.
Completely. You're taking reasonable steps to prohibit.
But does the private agreement expire, or does it in any way ever become null and void at any point? Or does it always just stay with the site plan?
I don't know. I didn't look at the question as to whether that's valid or enforceable as to those abutters or their successors in interest. That may be possible. I didn't look at that.
Do you see that there? I didn't see that. Do you see it there that it terminates, or everybody has to agree to it?
I don't think I saw anything about any expiration on it ever.
And I don't see any language in here that, usually you would see something in a document like, this binds, successors and assigns and whatever. I don't see that here. It specifically talks about these two abutters, but
I've never seen an agreement like that before.
Yeah, it's
so
different.
It's odd.
But the heading, it says right there, memorandum of agreement between Romano's Pizza and the abutters Brown and
right. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't talk about successors and assigns, and there's no specific language there. It only is referring to those two. So
there was whatever it's an MOU or MOA. There's something that says it's a difference between a contract and that, and they had to be one of the 6 had to meet to be a contract. And here's one of the 6, but I don't know if it meets it or not. You're the lawyer here.
Well, that may be a question.
Here, let me give you this. It says, because it's not a contract if it's an MUO or an MUA, unless it meets one of these 6 criteria. And I don't know if it does or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Do any of those apply?
Yeah, it's.
So is it technically a contract or a?
It's an agreement.
It's an agreement.
If it's signed by both parties, it was signed by the parties, then and it's contained in the document, then it's an agreement.
You want to see those, Jay, just to see if it does anything? If you see anything from an NRP perspective. Sorry, expensive. The MUO, whatever, those, they had to meet one of those 6 to be considered a contract.
And I mean, even number 6 at the bottom here of this memorandum says Morano's and the abutters move and request that the Litchfield Planning Board incorporate this memorandum of agreement into its decision. So, but anyway, I mean, I don't want to continue on that point.
So it's really not a contract.
So I guess it's
a quasi agreement. Yeah.
Well, in any case, so I guess I assume we have options here. We could.
Take a butter comments.
Yeah, I'm going to do that in just a second. I didn't forget that. But before we go there, I just want to, we can have you, we could look at the conditions, and if you want to make any changes to them, we could do that. Or we can have you come in with an amended plan. And then at that time, have a hearing and do the proper procedures. And then basically, acceptance of the plan, conditions of approval, whatever it is that needs to be done. And that plan will supersede this one. We could do that as well. Now that's up to you. I think, my feeling on this, and that's only my opinion, this is part of, the memorandum is part of the site plan. It was part of that. It was made condition of that. I think it's clear from the language. And, but again,
and a new site plan would nullify it at that point?
Would that be true? Would it, if he amended it, would that supersede? Well, it would.
Absolutely. That's how it's on the agenda.
That would make more sense. In terms of that, but
right. The way this was noticed, for tonight is a modification of the approved site plan. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to physically change that document. You could change a condition of that physical plan without having a new engineered plan brought in. So that's how it's being billed tonight. Is it be a modification of the approved site plan, and that modification would supersede what was previously approved, making moot the question of whether or not it was incorporated.
But the noise was for people in the parking lot before. But now you have a patio outside, which is creating.
That was more of my understanding.
So do we need a new site plan because of the patio outside? It's not that big.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, because that wasn't, from my understanding, wasn't addressed in the original site review for this project. The patio came in subsequent or after. So, yeah, technically, yeah. If it's something new, then
does that require a new site plan, a small patio? I don't know.
It's to your discretion, really.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's up to you what you want, what would like. We can do it. I think for me, it's cleaner to do an amended plan, and go through the process and basically make it that way instead of having to go through and, trying to change something. And then, you get into all these things where, but part of the original plan, and then there may be issues down the road that you don't want. So maybe that's my opinion. You don't have to abide by it, but I just want to make it cleaner for you and easier for you to go forward. So.
I don't know if I see it as being easier. I see it as being longer and more expensive than the way I see it. I have an approved site plan that almost could be resubmitted because it really does. As long as that agreement wasn't incorporated with it, I don't have a major problem with the wording. That agreement being tied to it, which I was not under the impression it was, which is why I agreed to the site plan in the first place. I knew I had an agreement with him, and we at the time, a lot of the things that we're talking about now weren't even up for discussion. Like we said, we weren't considering having a musician play outside, but it's
So I guess the bigger question is, when the abutters are no longer there, does the memorandum become null and void?
Right.
What was that one
Because it
sentence you
says-
read about abutters?
It says the abutters Brown and Frizzell.
Right, it's
It
specific.
says the individuals themselves, so,
Right.
you know, if the individuals are no longer there, is that portion of it null and void?
You read a statement about subsequent abutters.
Well,
It doesn't really
usually
matter for the
They
board's
would put language of,
perspective.
Oh, you
their
didn't see it
success.
in there?
No, I didn't
Okay.
see it. The successors
It
are
still
assigned
exists as a
Oh,
binding
people who
agreement.
succeed.
The question is whether the board
Wants to
It
have
would
it
continue
as a
have a
condition.
conditional
I don't
part.
see that
So
in here.
we
It's
can
very
easily vote
specific.
that it's no longer a conditional part of it, based off of the abutters are no longer the abutters.
Or we could say it was
Or
never
whatever
part
we
of it.
want, or
Whatever
we
we
can
just
just
say
say
it
part
was
of it.
never really a part of it. It was a separate agreement.
Okay, I would
Which I
prefer to
think-
go that route if that's on the table.
So I think that would be the easiest way to go about this if we think that that's what it is.
You gotta go public comment too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to open it up now to public comment. Is there any members of the public here this evening who wish to speak on this issue? Yes, can you state your name and address, please?
My name is Kyla Duquette. I live at 494 Charles Bancroft Highway,
Okay.
obviously in Litchfield. And I have to apologize in advance, and public speaking not my thing.
That's
So
all
I
right.
have to write up these comments in advance. I'm probably gonna touch on things that you guys already talked about.
Mhm.
So you can stop me if you've heard it before. So yeah, you know, I just want to say, I have been around Litchfield my whole life. The house was my grandparents before it was mine, so from when it was built in the 60s. I have owned it for the past 11 years. I am now raising my family in it. So we've seen Romano's as a growing business. I have no problem with Romano's as a business. It's a good business. It's good for the town. It's good for everybody. But when Romano's business infringes on my business, then I've got to say something. You know, in this case, their desire to have this live outdoor music is impacting my ability to enjoy my home. Whatever we're saying about, is it too loud? How many decibels is it? We can hear it in the house. You know, I can't turn on the TV loud enough to drown it out when I'm in my house. I do not want to ask for exceptions just because I have a child, but that has become a sticking point. I had an image, it goes to bed between 7 and 8. Their music starts at 8, carries on until 10. But it could be anything, you know, it could be maybe somebody has to work early in the morning, maybe you have elderly people in the neighborhood, maybe somebody's sick, it doesn't matter what my individual situation is. Sort of what matters is his business is impacting the neighborhood. And I will have to admit, I'm not technically in the butter. We do not share a property line, but our location is key. We are directly across the street. He's sort of up on a hill. I'm sort of up on a hill. His patio was pointed right at our bedrooms. The shape of the building actually reflects all that noise right into the bedroom windows, right into the living room windows. So I would suggest to you that, you know, it's not fair to say, well, close your windows, turn up your TV. You know, I shouldn't be able to hear it in the house. I would also suggest that some of the claims I've heard, you know, well, this noise isn't that loud, it's not that late. Again, as I said, that's kind of a hard claim to make because I'm inside my home when I'm being affected by it. I'm not complaining about what I hear when I'm outside. You know, there's plenty of outside noises when it's inside. I'd point out too that this has been a developing situation over the years. You know, in 11 years, I've called Romano's, I've emailed them. I've spoken to Mr. Vessels directly. I've spoken to other managers that are, you know, asking, this is once in a while, can we work together? Can we keep it down? What can we do? I mean, because you're affecting us. Responses have ranged from non-existent, comical, somewhat offensive, and I'm not really seeing an improvement, which is what caused me to come to the town and say, is there anything else I can do? This is now taking place every Saturday night. I now have a child in the house. That's when the town made me aware of this. I'm not sure if we're calling it an MOA or an MOU. It says memorandum of agreement on it. They made me aware of this documentation. That to me quite clearly I know you guys already discussed it, but to me quite clearly says, it's conditional and there will be no live or recorded music on the site. That wasn't initially what I was asking for, but when you show me that in black and white, I'm kind of wondering why I'm being bothered in the house. So that, as that played out, the town, as you know, then went to Romanos and informed them that they were in violation. We had about a 2-week hiatus before they went back to the live music at a loud volume. And I have to clarify here that the volume is not just my opinion. I have called the Litchfield Police Department and had them come out. They were out actually on July 21st, standing on my front set. And to quote the officer, her comment was, "Wow, this is extremely loud. I would not want to live here." So this is not just me saying, having super hearing. You have objective backup on this. It happened again on August 4th. If you'd like, I actually have documented every time I've had a complaint about the music, every time I've had to call the Litchfield Police Department this summer, be it for the live music or even for the stereo music that carries on after they've closed and there's nobody there. I will grant you the stereo music is quieter, but again, it's playing in my bedroom window when the business is closed. So to come to my point, I believe that this memorandum of agreement protected not just the people who signed it, but the whole neighborhood from this situation. It protected me also, even though I didn't even live there at the time. To comment again, as it said in paragraph 3, that there would be no live or recorded music, and then in paragraph 6, they request to incorporate this into the decision for approving the Romanos site. It seems to me that, my grandparents living there, seeing this come through, and when you guys were reviewing the site plan, they said, yeah, no problem. They're gonna have a pizza place. It's gotta be across the street. They'll conduct business inside. There won't be a lot of noise outside. We have no reason to complain. I have no problem with them on the wanting to grow. That's great. It's good business. It's good for the town. But they should not grow at our expense. If I was an individual on somebody's front lawn every Saturday playing loud music, and I'm sure people would take issue. And I'd like to say too, Mr. Vessels has made the informal assertion, to me at least, he sort of danced around it here tonight, that, it's only Saturdays, it's only 8 to 10, it's not that loud. It has been known to run later than 8 to 10. Just this past Saturday, they ran until 10:30, and there were only 2 people on the patio. While we sat in our living room and went, I wonder when this is going to stop so we could go to bed. And I'd say, again, we can't assume that 8 to 10 is reasonable just because it's reasonable for the business owner or for one of my neighbors. If it's not reasonable for me, if it's not reasonable for another of my neighbors, it really doesn't matter our individual situations. Just as we respect him, we'd like to be respected. So I guess in short, I would say I hope I've convinced you to uphold the MOA. However, if not, my question, actually very similar, is what are my options going forward? I think that if somehow the site plan is determined not to include these restrictions, we're kind of giving Romanos free rein to do whatever they want. They can have music every day, as late as they want, as loud as they want. This year it's only Saturdays, 8 to 10-ish. Next year maybe it's going to be more frequent, maybe it's going to be longer, maybe it's going to be louder. It's going to make it harder to live there. And, Romanos is located in a neighborhood. I know we're zoned commercial and residential, but there are houses there. Yeah, and similarly, if you decide, okay, there is some limitation, they have to keep noise to a reasonable level. How do we determine what's reasonable? Is that my judgment? Is that Mr. Vessel's judgment? Who's going to come out to measure that on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock? When I'm pretty sure the planning board's not working to come out. The Litchfield Police Department can come out and say, yeah, it's really loud, but they can't do much to help me. So yeah, I would just ask you guys sort of, where am I going from here too? When we leave this meeting tonight, can I expect to hear the music on Saturday? Is there more action I need to take? That's what I got.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
Then you have the written one.
Yes, I was just about to do that. Thank you. I have a email that came in. This is Tuesday, August 7th, 2018, to the members of the planning board, and I'll read it into the record. Hi, this is Jason Brennan from 23 Aldrich Street, and as I cannot attend the meeting tonight, I would like to state my support for the site plan revision that would allow outdoor music on the Romano's patio. Firstly, I was on the planning board when this site plan was approved, and I do not believe the terms of the private agreement between the applicant and a direct abutter were included in the conditions of approval. I believe they were included for general reference only. That being said, we would have to go back to the minutes to confirm. Secondly, the music he is playing on the patio is very low key and typically consists of a single person with a guitar and a single speaker. The music is not loud. There are no rock bands playing, and Keith has even modified the location so that any speakers are pointing away from any houses. Thirdly, having music outdoors has been a benefit to the community. It gives people in town a place to go in town in the summer to socialize and to be entertained. It's awesome that we don't have to go up to Manchester or to Nashua for a similar experience. This is a growing community, and adults are looking for a place close by to relax and mingle with folks from town. This works perfectly without being disruptive to the neighbors or the environment. Jason Brennan, sent from my iPhone. So there weren't any others, Joan, were there? I know that was the one I found, but you sent me, I think. Okay. So I guess the question comes back to the board. What's the board's will, do you think? Or, I mean,
did the police, when they came, go over to talk to you afterwards?
Not officially, no.
What does officially mean?
I spoke to them the next day, but actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. I did not speak to them directly, but someone in the store spoke to them directly.
Well, I don't know if it was a violation. I don't know if it was that loud or not. I don't know.
Is
Can
there
a buffer
any
be built?
police report of any of that?
I was led to believe that they didn't feel it was that loud, and they thought that it was.
There's no recorded police report?
Any of it? I wasn't the one who filed it, so.
Do you know if they filed a report?
I know they documented it. They took all my information every time that I called.
Right.
What I was informed of is that the police cannot enforce site plan violations. They're not aware.
Was there anything on a police report that states that the music was, I guess, over what it should be, over the nuisance level or anything like that? Did they make any?
I would be under the impression it's their interpretation, isn't it? If they feel it's loud, then they intervene. That's at least what, I mean, Litchfield doesn't have a noise ordinance, but I'm sure there is a limit to where the police will intervene.
They have no ordinance, so they could not intervene, but that they were filing. And I don't know what constitutes an official police report.
Yeah,
other than them putting it in the log.
Right.
I know it was definitely logged. I can give you the officer's name. That would help.
Yeah, we can see if
because I know they were documenting it, because I made them aware also that I had been advised by the town.
Right, any
to call
documentation.
them rather than to call Mr. Vessels directly, because that wasn't.
Right. Yeah, any documentation from the police of excessive noise, if there's any documentation from that officer, if she made any notes of that.
Wouldn't that be a
I mean, if the officer is just going over and just saying, "Oh yeah, it's loud," okay, that's more of a hearsay kind of thing instead of what was documented. You know,
Is there a buffer that can be put in any way to reduce the noise? I think it sounds like you were both on hills and
Not a reasonable one.
not like trees to stop it or.
Jason Brennan's email referenced the fact that we did actually we actually turned everything so it would be facing our parking lot as opposed to we initially were facing 3A. So we did try to change to see if that would cut down. I thought maybe pointing it towards the woods, the far end of the parking lot might cut down on the noise, which I still think it did, but I didn't think it was particularly loud to begin with. I think there are people who are within 15 feet of these speakers and the performers, and they're obviously not uncomfortable. So I don't understand how someone 400 feet, 500 feet away would be that uncomfortable and inside a house. That's why I'm not trying to be difficult about that. I've taken like I said, I got a decibel meter and I've checked it. I think it's reasonable. Cars going by is slightly quieter than the musicians. When the musician has done a song, when people clap, that's louder than the music was in the first place. Those are the biggest readings that I'm getting, are when people clap after a song. I think it's reasonable. I think I'm attempting to be respectful, but I think what we're doing shouldn't interfere with anyone's life. And maybe I don't know. I personally don't feel like it should be an issue. I don't believe I've ever received another complaint from anyone else. And at least for now, it is just once a week. I mean, I think that's slightly irrelevant to this, but I think I attempt to be receptive, but there is a point that it seemed like the complaints were stop or I'm going to complain. So there did come a point in time when there wasn't any like negotiating or common ground. It was either stop or we have an issue. At least that's the way I took it.
Could we inquire if any members are still in town from 2005 that might remember this? I don't know if we can. It's 14. Yeah.
I think you could, but I think the question isn't really whether or not that agreement was incorporated to the site plan. We have a position from the town attorney that says it was. Mm-hmm. The question is whether or not the board wants to grant an amendment or modification to that site plan to allow the playing of outdoor music. That's really the question. I think.
But that's a non-terminating. Is this a terminating document? I don't know. That's
the board isn't. The planning board is not bound by that document. The planning board, the interpretation of the town attorney is that the planning board chose to incorporate those conditions into its approval, but that's not binding on the planning board. Okay. Private parties can't enter into an agreement that binds the town.
But this was considered one of the reasons why it was passed, or no? I'm trying to remember that.
It may or may not, but again, what the position of the town attorney is that the conditions in that MOA were incorporated into the site plan approval. That was at the board's discretion. They were not bound by that agreement. They were not required to do that. They chose to, arguably, though he could just as easily choose to impose different conditions. They could, I should say, not unilaterally. The applicant, we have an application seeking an amendment to the conditions of approval. The board can do that. Okay. Whether that agreement is still valid or not, or binding, is irrelevant.
All right, so the attorney believes that was part of it. Anyway, not this physically, correct, but the conversations going on at the time for that to happen. Okay, right. So this can go away. They believe that was in that anyway. So now it's a question of whether we remember. So
it's a question of whether you want to modify, right, not all those conditions, specifically the condition on outdoor music.
Right. Yeah.
Does it have any weight that Jason Brennan was on the board and he said that he didn't think so, and I have the minutes and it's never referenced, and then we have the plan and it's not well, I'm sorry, it's referenced, but it's not a condition of approval. I think those three things are pretty telling.
You want to read the minutes?
I was
don't know
there.
where they came from. He has minutes from that meeting, but I don't
You
know.
have those?
I don't know if they're authentic or
Would you-
where we got
would you
them. I
like
have no idea.
present them, I guess?
If you'd like to,
Sure.
If you'd like to read them, sure.
Sure, yeah. You have them.
But there could have been conversations before this.
Thank you.
We don't know.
The minutes are with official.
Agreement off, those abutters came to the meeting and it was an agreement off-site. And that's how the memorandum agreement came about. It was an off-site thing between them and Vermont. That's how I.
And we didn't probably have noise ordinances back then.
Right.
If we don't have
Well,
them now,
no.
that they've
And,
found.
and as we know, the minutes don't always reflect everything
Yeah.
that was said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard to
And
say.
there could have
what
been 3 meetings
conversations
before that. So based on what I see so far, but correct me if I'm wrong, assume the lawyer is correct. This was incorporated in part of the decision, not the document itself, but what was going on with their, communication. Then it's a question of, do we allow it to change?
Exactly.
Okay.
Which we have the discretion to do.
Right.
That's basically.
And this did go out to all the abutters, right? And nobody came other than you came.
But it
Yeah.
actually go out to me because
She's not about it.
And how did you find out? Oh, okay. So what we're seeing is no abutters came tonight, is what we're
Correct.
saying. Okay.
Am I allowed to speak to the comment that no one else has complained?
Well, it's, I'll allow you to speak.
If I'm not- there's actually one, no one else has complained. I have new neighbors. I am aware that the previous neighbors complained to Mr. Vessels directly. I don't know, I did not ask them to, bring their complaints to me because they no longer live in Litchfield. And that is pertinent. If that is pertinent, I can ask them to do that. Secondly, I would like to address the comment that there is a difference between music and road noise. Just as there is music and fireworks, the constant drum of music and it gets in your head. You're laying there in bed trying to sing along with it. Whether you know the words or not, that is very different from road noise. And I think that is what for us to be able to hear it inside, to be singing along with his radio, not the time.
There are drums. So there are drums.
I do not know that there is a drum player. It does sound like it is frequently, I'll admit, I don't go over there. It is frequently one singer that I can hear with whatever supporting, whether it's recorded or played live, I cannot tell, but you can definitely really feel the music in the house. Yeah, I actually, in my documentation, if you would like to know what songs they have played, I was able to note that down just sitting on my couch.
Shrubs wouldn't help this around a patio, tall shrubs to absorb the noise.
I do have shrubs.
Are they tall?
They're not tall enough. I mean, it takes time to grow, but
Well,
There's no other official complaints.
I don't believe I've ever received another complaint. To the best of my knowledge, I've never received a complaint from anyone else.
Do we have to somehow define what the reasonable level of noise is?
yeah,
That's, I have it here. It's,
That's in the
I think it
ordinance,
said
isn't it?
nuisance. Let me get it. Oh, wrong one. I went into the website for our site regulations and the zoning ordinances, and I looked for noise, sound, yeah, I looked at different words. Let me just find it. So give me a second. It really was just if it was a nuisance to bordering, and I don't know if she's considered a border.
To a butter.
Oh, it didn't say a butter. It said well, let me find it. So here we go. Let me find, because they just cut and paste the same sentence everywhere. Should I do the Northern Commercial District, or do you want me to do, I mean, that's kind of a Northern Commercial Industrial. They could be in either one, right? They have the same words.
Mixed use.
All land use activities shall be conducted and operated to minimize negative environmental impacts to neighboring properties from emissions of smoke, noise, and odors, vibrations, discharges of stormwater runoff, and shall conform to all state and federal regulations following the performance standards in section 403. And 403 says, all noise except that generated by normal human or vehicular activity shall be muffled so as not to be objectionable due to intermittent beat, frequency, or shrillness. At property lines, noise levels shall not exceed 75 dBA.
What are you reading that from? What's that from?
That's the zoning ordinance?
403.
This is the zoning ordinance.
Of who?
Us, Litchfield. It's, if you want to look at it online, it's section 403.
With you?
Yeah, Joan was on it. It's
Yeah.
403.02.
I thought I sent that to you a while back.
On
Yeah,
the
yeah.
July
Yeah, I think I have
26th
it
at 3:25.
And then as far as our site plan regulations, not really too much here on that. Do you want this? It's all the districts, whether it's commercial, residential, and transmission. They just cut and paste the same lines. But 403, they all refer to 403. So obviously we need to tighten up some ordinances in town. And I don't know what's legal or not.
Yeah.
So it's considered what's a nuisance, right? Or a drum beat? It didn't say. It says. Well, I'll have her read it again.
There's no drums though.
Huh? Well, if they're playing music, maybe. If they're playing it too. Or CD or whatever they're playing. Live music.
There, so it has to be under 75 dB.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dilemma because you're not really breaking noise ordinances, right? But obviously it's having an impact on someone, right? So. All right, to answer her question though, if say we approve or modify the site plan, what is her recourse of action? I don't know how to answer that either.
Well, I think it goes back to what Jay said. I mean, this is not necessarily binding on the planning board. It's binding on the parties who were to this agreement. But I guess, I mean, well, it goes into, well, I don't want to go into that, but whether there can be an argument made that, that you are bound by this because of the other abutters, whether it's because of the site plan that was incorporated or whatever, or this, was signed. That's an argument that's totally outside the realms that we, right, exactly. And I think that's something that legal counsel would have to decide. Our job is basically to make sure that, that everything is being complied with and that, the rules and regulations, and, we are the planning board, we have a responsibility to the town. And, we want to work with the applicant to see, to the best, if we can, to see if we can try to remedy this. I think, again, we can do that tonight. We have the discretion to do that. Question is, how do you want to play it? And I mean, the hours of operation, that's not, that's the hours of operation. I can't really, that's really what the applicants, if they want to be open, that's fine. I think really the main one is the reasonable steps to prohibit playing loud music. I think that's the piece that needs to be addressed. And what are those reasonable steps? Can there be reasonable steps taken by the applicant? These are questions I'm throwing out there because that's the issue if we're going to decide this tonight.
wouldn't the governing be 403.02, 75 dBA?
Yes, we have the ordinance.
Is that the one I just read?
Yes,
Okay.
the one that, yeah. I mean, the noise level shall not exceed 75 dBA. And it was your understanding that there wasn't anything that exceeded that? Is that?
I didn't know if there was any other reports that were, or any recordings anywhere that have been documented that went over that limit at the property. I mean, it's anybody's interpretation of what's loud and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's
You're actually sitting there.
Right.
right.
I mean, I hate the legal term because I'm not a lawyer. In good faith, could you put shrubs up that would be taller to maybe block some of it? Or is that too much of an expense?
It's not too much of an expense. I don't really think it would have the effect that you're looking for.
Because we have that in a lot of our manuals, that it does stop some of the sound.
If you look from our property, from the front corner all the way around the side, along the street, there is foliage, there's shrubs, there's it doesn't seem, well, I don't know, maybe it helps so far. I would be slightly concerned about doing it across the front because it would kind of hurt our exposure.
Right.
So if it helps, I've got some comparisons on DBA.
Yeah.
If you just want to hear what some of them are. So passenger car at 65 miles an hour, 25 feet from the highway, 77 dBA. At 50 feet, it's slightly less. Living room music, 76 dBA. Radio or TV audio or vacuum cleaner, 70 dBA. For what that's worth.
So you're saying you can hear a vacuum from your house 400 feet away? And where is it? Oh, yeah, he's on a hill. I'm giving him
DBA
full.
is taken at certain distances.
That's right.
You
These
have
are
to
all
know
these.
what distance.
And there's
So
no
whenever you
buffer
do
in
any
between
piece
the
of
two
equipment,
hills,
they
really, right?
usually it's 3 feet is where they record the DBA from.
It's so subjective, you know. It's a tough
I'm
one.
not saying I can hear a vacuum cleaner.
No, but yeah, according to that, you should be able to hear a vacuum cleaner from my
Just
house.
in your house, living room
Right.
music. If
Like I
you're
said,
in your
high,
living
and
room,
there's nothing stopping
be,
the
right.
noise going back. It's a tough one. It really is tough here because he's not doing anything illegal. I don't see it from our ordinances. And the police haven't said stop.
I was under the impression if there was an issue, they would come and they would use either their judgment or they'd have a decimeter and they would tell us to turn it down if they believe it's too loud. That's never happened. I did invite them down last year and they came down, they drove through. I specifically asked them, do you think this is loud? And they said, no. And I said, okay, thanks. That's all I wanted was just their impression on if what we were doing was excessive. And they didn't believe so that time. And I think we've even taken more steps.
This live music wasn't going on last year. Yeah, one night last year, August 19th, that I sent an email about to you.
It wasn't every Saturday last year, but there was multiple times last year. This year was the first year we were trying to do it regularly, once a week.
Because you did a vinyl night last year.
We did at least one. I believe we did two. And I think I had just once again, just people, single solo artists, basically. I think we did that twice.
So the speakers, does he have a microphone and then there's speakers hooked up?
It varies from, we've had different people each week. They normally have their own equipment, but usually it's one microphone, one speaker. Like I said, I would just gauge it by basically, if I was performing, you would be watching. So this is about how far away you are. And I would just think if it's excessively loud, it would be uncomfortable for you to sit this close to it. And obviously people are choosing to and don't get me wrong, I know some people like it really loud, but.
Well, you can have a conversation out there. It's not a very big
definitely,
patio,
yeah.
obviously. But.
And I can contest, I've actually pulled into the parking lot to go pick up stuff and I didn't even realize it was a live performer until I got 6 feet from the stairs, heading up onto the patio.
At some point in our past, Litchfield had a movie theater. outside, which I'm sure was loud. And I'm sure Spooky World's pretty loud,
Litchfield did.
but nobody came down on that one. Too bad about noise anyway, right? I just don't see anything legally wrong here. Although I understand the complaint.
As long as it's compliant with 40302, I mean,
Yeah,
Does that
and
say nuisance though? What did it say in there again? Did it say nuisance? I don't know what definition of
Yes.
nuisance is.
Noise except that generated by normal human or vehicular activity shall be muffled so as not to be objectionable due to intermittence, beat frequency, or shrillness. At the property line, noise level shall not exceed 75 dBA.
at property lines.
probably right.
Property line.
Well, that mentions nuisance, though.
Was you looking at the site plan or are you looking at the ordinance? Are you looking at 403? Can you go to the other one that's the ordinances? Oh, I mean, the one where they talk about districts. They're in the industrial slant.
Performance standards. The intent of this section is to prevent land or buildings from being occupied or used in any manner that would create any dangerous, injurious, noxious, hazardous, or nuisance condition due to the release, emission of generation, objectionable levels of vibration, noise, smoke, dust, etc.
Nuisance was nuisance in that. Nuisance was in one of them.
Oh, a nuisance is a substantial
A
interference.
nuisance is a dog barking. too.
It's a substantial interference with use and enjoyment of the property.
Okay.
That's basically what it is.
Do we need legal to look at this again, or would it buy anything for us insight?
I mean,
I think it's unfortunately to your, it's for you to decide.
yeah.
I talked to Laura last week at a meeting that we had, and she said basically it's up to our discretion.
So what do you want to do?
Is it just one night a week? Just Saturday, that's it?
At this point, yes. And
So it's gonna be
I don't have plans for more, but I'm not.
Mhm.
Right now, yeah, it's from about 8 to about 10 on Saturday.
June, July, August, September.
Right now, we had just planned it June through August.
3 months.
Well,
What was
What do you
your, what did he want to do? Did he want to amend that?
I mean, are you, I guess we can go back to the, I mean, do you want to have this amended, this, the plan tonight? If you do, we just need to know what it is that you're looking for. I mean, as I said, I think the piece here that is the reasonable steps to prohibit the playing of loud music on site. Do we need to add something to that? Do we need to take something away? I mean,
At least at this point in time, I'm okay with that because I'm not looking to play loud music. And if that's a noise ordinance, I plan on staying within it. So I would think that would mean that I am taking steps to prohibit the playing of loud music.
Mhm.
So I'm fine with the language. I'm fine with the plan as is. It doesn't say anything about a conditional approval based on that agreement. The abutters are no longer abutters. I would like that agreement to just be thrown away and treated as if it never existed. And I'm fine with the rest of the language on the plan as it was approved.
And what actually triggered that letter that we read? I'm trying to find the letter that I think Kevin Lynch signed.
This one?
Yeah, there must be some reason that it, let me see what he did. I read it. I just can't find it.
The letter came based off of legal's interpretation of what the law was.
Okay. Which is on a special letterhead. All right, so it's whether. All right, it's tough because the attorney believes that it was in part of that, right?
Right.
But still.
But it's in conflict with our
Still
laws.
allowed
or
discretion.
But it's right. So even though the memorandum exists,
Yeah, just keep that out. They just assume the content was
Yeah.
part of the conversation for that. But it is in conflict with our ordinances, right? Well, we have them, but they're kind of thin. That's.
well, I mean, that's something we can address,
Mhm.
obviously, if that's something that needs to be addressed, we can do that. I think right now, the issue is to determine what's in, how we want to amend it to, if that's what we're looking
Are we
to do.
amending it?
Or not amending.
Right.
We don't
Yeah, we're
have
not
to.
even-
Just to go on
Deciding if the
rubbish.
music should go
It's
on or not.
discretionary, so yeah, I mean, we don't have to, but I mean, if that's something that,
It's allowed as long as it stays within certain 40302.
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best alternative is that, the ordinance is the ordinance. It remains in effect. It's a regulation of the town. And so long as it's a regulation of the town, we have the discretion to enforce it and obviously to address the issue. So,
Would you have to write a letter to the attorney saying what the
I-
decision was to have an audit trailer?
I think it's not so much writing a letter to the attorney. If you wanted to go that direction,
Yeah.
you could make a motion that the existing site plan is modified to the extent that, the playing of outdoor music is permitted within whatever parameters you wish. It would be that you would be modifying that condition of approval. If you wished to allow the playing of
Not
outdoor
too
music,
detailed to say
that's what you'd be doing. You'd be
Saturdays
modifying the
from 8
approved
to
site
10.
plan
You want it
to,
open.
exactly.
Well, would it have to be specific about?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying you wouldn't want it too detailed, right?
It's
It's up to us.
it's up to-
He
right.
doesn't want to be
Right.
locked into a Saturday at 8 to 10.
I was just more or less thinking this plan is not going to change whatsoever.
Mhm.
As far as I'm concerned, it's just not having that agreement attached to it, which I was under the impression it was not attached.
It wouldn't. What Joan was saying is that you're not changing the notes on the plan. That's true. What you'd be modifying is, to the extent that that the conditions in that agreement are incorporated into site plan approval. You're modifying the condition to allow the playing of outdoor music.
What was number 3's note or the one about the noise? Anything
Vermont
about
is to take reasonable steps to prohibit the playing of loud music on its site.
reasonable steps?
I would think that would be assumed even if it wasn't on the plan, wouldn't it?
Reasonable steps to not
Right.
play loud,
Loud
music.
music.
right,
If loud would be over 75 decibels,
then that's,
is that what we're?
I think that's, yeah, I mean, that would make sense because if it's over 75, then you're exceeding the ordinance. So it would have to be within that range. It has to be.
But if we grant outside music, it will negate the part of the memorandum of understanding between the butters.
Because
And
that
even
was,
if that did become part of it,
Yeah.
we just changed the approval of that. Right.
That's right.
So that's where that piece of it would change that part of it.
and we're not, again, when you first had this in front of the board, it was for inside music, right? Or his drivers. You were worried about the drivers.
If you go back and read the way that memorandum states.
Yeah, I never got a copy of that. But now you have outdoor music, which was different. That's a different noise being introduced. Not that it's not still legal, but I'm just saying at the time, this wasn't part of their decision process.
At the time, number 3 noise said playing of music, whether live or recorded, is permitted in Romano's building only, including in the building addition proposed and shown in the proposed site plan.
Right.
Noise from inside Romano's building at 23 Colby Road, including music, whether live or recorded, shall not reach or be heard on the abutter's property. Romano shall prohibit its employees while at 23 Colby Road from playing radios and stereos outside of Romano's buildings or while on Morgan Road. Romano shall take reasonable steps to prohibit the loud playing of radios and stereos at 23 Colby Road by its customers, invitees, including delivery people.
But all of that noise is about in the building, not outside of the building. Yeah. So
Right.
That's just different.
And that's the condition that
Right.
they're seeking to have modified is the condition that
Correct.
says you can only play music inside the
Inside the
building.
building.
So, I mean, do you looking to? So I would.
Is
You
this
know,
void or not?
what's that?
Is this what he just read? Is it void or not? Is it still?
That's not for us to
Is
The
it
determine.
still
memo?
letter
No,
of the
that
lane
yeah,
right now for
no.
this?
It's not up for us to determine if it's voided or not,
Who's
But-
or if
it?
it's included or whatever. It's a different
That's yeah,
group of people have to be concerned with that.
right. So I mean,
Kind of need to know that.
That would be between, because it would be separate, right? That would be
I think what
between
we have to focus on is
Right.
our ordinance, our regulation, not so much the memorandum, but what it is in our ordinance. You know, that doesn't exceed the decibel level, you know, of 75,
Mhm.
you know, whatever. That, you know, that it's done, you know, that doesn't adversely affect, you know, the quality of life or whatever, those types of things. I think that's the focus of our decision as a planning board, because those are our regulations. We are the planning board. We have the right to, you know, we can enforce that. That's an enforcement measure.
But is this implying that music is not supposed to be played outdoors?
I'm sorry.
The building only.
That's-
Only
Yeah.
have music in the building.
That's separate from anything that has to do with us, as I'm understanding it.
Okay.
Right. So if they wanted to ask me to stop, then that's completely within their right.
The
Whoever
abut-
signed
the
this
abutter,
agreement, yeah,
Which isn't
if you-
in the butter anymore.
whoever signed this agreement, if they wanted to have a discussion with them, that's their prerogative.
Fair enough.
But at least as far as I understand,
Right.
that is not our burden to bear.
Mhm.
So that's really out of our hands. That part's out of our hands, but
Mhm.
the part that's in our hands
Is
is
the ordinance,
right.
which
And-
I don't think you're in violation.
I think, you know, do we do a condition of approval that basically abides by that, by the ordinance?
That's what I
Or,
would say.
So wait,
um,
now I'm confused. Are we adding a condition of approval?
If that's the direction that you want to go, what you would be doing is voting to amend the condition of approval to permit outdoor music within the parameters of the ordinance.
Correct.
So moved.
so you have a motion,
Yes.
and the motion is,
The motion is to allow the playing of music outdoors within the parameters of our noise ordinances.
okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
And that's
Second.
to amend the, sorry, the motion was to amend the
Approved site plan.
site plan?
With the conditions of the site plan.
The conditions of the site plan.
To explicitly state that it's allowed within the noise ordinances.
Do you want to say section 403?
Yeah, I would cite the,
$3.
Yeah.
Following the noise ordinance 403.02 of the, was this zoning ordinance?
The zone
Yes.
is that everything we want to add then? You
Yes.
good with that? Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion carries 6-0-0. Okay,
What
It's
about,
done.
what about her, if she wants to do anything about this?
She has to go to the selectmen with a new ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Now, there
We
is-
could have
There
an
is a
ordinance.
clause in the ordinance already about nuisance.
Yes, which would be
Nuisance, so
75 decibels.
Objectionable. Objectionable.
It doesn't say 75 decibels is
75
a nuisance. It says a nuisance or 75 decibels of property line. So how do I demonstrate that it is a nuisance? I mean, I'm willing to invite you all over to my living room.
I think nuisance is going to be very subjective. So they're
That's
probably
what
going to,
I'm
they're going to
asking.
define back probably the 75 dB. They're probably going to try to quantify it is what I think the default would be because we all have different nuisances. So there's only one way of doing it is what is quantified. And I think that's probably where it will stand, but I don't know.
But that would be going to, I mean, I think at this point, the town administrator or the code enforcement officer, it wouldn't be the
Right.
board itself.
Yeah,
because the board
the-
itself doesn't enforce.
Yeah.
So, but, and this may not be a question that you can answer, but this is what my question has been all along. 9, 10 o'clock on Saturday night. I'm experiencing nuisance. The town administrator, code enforcer, the planning board is not working at 9 or 10 o'clock to come out and verify that it's a nuisance.
The selectmen now are the code enforcement, so call them. As of right now.
The selectmen?
Yes.
Selectmen are the code enforcement.
Right,
By
by
default,
default,
By
Oh, wow.
default, we are.
under state.
We can assign someone to have that, but by default, we are the code enforcement for health, building.
Wow.
So I call the selectmen at 9 o'clock on Saturday?
Or,
I guess so.
Call the police department, make sure there's a good detailed report of what's happening.
Yeah,
Right.
and then
Build a
bring it up
record.
to this selectman, I would say. Or- So I'm not really sure what the next
Because
steps would be.
I don't think it's standard for a police officer to carry a decibel.
No.
As long as you have a town official actually writing what exactly is going on.
But they do have applications on
Not
your
according
phone
to
you can
their opinion,
download
you
that
know.
will do it based off the microphone.
Oh, I'm aware of those, but is that authoritative?
I'm not sure.
I happen to have one.
Oh, okay.
just go to the board meeting with her proof, right?
Mhm.
A tape recording, whatever you have, and
Yeah, same
Cite
thing.
the ordinances.
No, she wouldn't come to a board meeting.
no,
No.
You're not the enforcer.
no, but she has to make
She'd have
the
to go to
report.
selectmen.
Let's vote a selectman, yeah,
The board of selectmen.
right. And
'Cause they're the
build a
enforcer.
case with the site regs, and, you know.
And there may be some other alternatives around enforcement that I think that could be discussed.
Yes.
And I would, of course, I will say again, with Mr. Russell, I would rather deal with this, personally. Can we keep it down? Can we do something to keep it from coming into the house? That's all I've ever asked.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I would
aware.
make the plea to you again.
I think I've been receptive though. Like I said, I changed the direction. I got a decimeter so I could even monitor how
Would you-
loud it is.
Would you like to come to the house some evening?
I
I would be
don't know.
happy to have you come here.
I'm not trying to be cynical, but I don't know how it's louder than it is at my property line. It would have to dissipate from there, so I know what it is there. I don't know how it's possible that it could be that loud.
This may not be a discussion.
I think,
Yeah,
this
I
is
think-
pretty much, I think we've ruled essentially on what, we feel is the appropriate action. So
At
if
least
you
for us to
folks
support.
have any further issues, then I think you're gonna have to figure that
It's
out.
a civil matter.
It's,
But your point is that I should call the Litchfield Police Department, have them, if we don't come.
If it's a nuisance.
to have
If it's a
them,
Have them record
If-
the nuisance.
And then it's the board of.
Selectmen.
Board of selectmen.
well, the Board of
It's been
Selectmen,
back and forth, so I'm a little confused.
the Board of Selectmen under state law, if you don't have a code enforcement officer in your town, it's by default that the Board of Selectmen is the code enforcement officer.
Okay.
So they're the ones that you have to go to address whatever concerns you have. Okay, so
This
that's,
is more than 9 o'clock at night, you probably have to call a police officer.
Thank you.
so we did the best we could.
We
Okay,
have to follow what's in the ordinances.
right. That's basically, the condition. So. The ordinance is the ordinance, so, okay? All right. Thank you.
As a learning, it's the future. if something like this happened, where we had a outside agreement happening, could we document it better or have, I don't know how to prevent this from happening again.
To be
Expiration
honest,
date
I
on it or
would never,
something.
ever recommend doing that.
Yeah.
You know, if you have conditions, they should be in the notice of approval and they should be on the
That's
plan
it.
as
Okay.
notes.
All right.
This
just-
kind of thing all
that's
goes
kinda-
Kind of
away.
willy-nilly out in the middle of
Becomes way
nowhere.
too subjective.
Yeah.
All right, so just don't do these
Don't do that.
MUOs, MOAs, whatever they're called. I didn't know if that was common practice.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
Rare. I've never seen it either. Okay, release of escrow accounts for Parkland Estates, approved 11/2017, and Thoreau Properties, approved 12/2017. Joan?
Yes, obviously all the bills are in by now, and I'd like to clean up those two accounts and have them released
So we're looking for a release of those,
back to the owners, right?
both. Okay, so I guess, I'm looking for a motion to allow those escrow accounts to be released for Parkland Estates and for Thoreau Properties.
Motion to release escrow accounts for Parkland Estates and Thoreau Properties.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 6-0-0. Okay, committee reports. Does anybody have anything to report for committees? Just that the Conservation Commission is meeting 22nd? Is it? Yeah, 22nd of August. The Lower Merrimack River Advisory Committee meeting, I believe, is scheduled for this August. I think it's going to be on the 23rd. It's a Thursday night. It's at the Nashua Public Library at 7 p.m.
I'll just say for the Heritage Commission, I need to get a hold of the Board of Selectmen to figure out when we're going to start having meetings.
Good.
I'll contact Troy, I guess.
Yeah, Troy, you should be back next week on vacation.
Okay, great.
Any news from the Board of Selectmen, Stephen? Nothing to report? Everything's good?
Budget time's coming up, so
Yeah,
be filled with all that.
absolutely. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, man.
Many weeks.
Yeah. And
You
on
never know what kind of warrants you get.
on that note, I did print out the 2019 budget schedule, and we are on the schedule for the 27th of August. First meeting, town meeting room, 6 p.m. First review, and the planning board is there. So just want to keep that abreast. It is budget season, so we'll be working on that. And
Do you have to present something or?
well, you're going to present something to is it the budget committee and the board?
Correct.
Selectmen.
And the budget committee meets here now.
Yes, that's right. Not at Campbell High School.
Yep. I remember hearing about this
Okay.
from my connections of people who are doing things.
And what did you say about the Heritage Committee?
I will reach out to Troy Brown in about a week and a half. When he's back from vacation. Don't say that. I'll reach out to Troy Brown about when we can start
Scheduling.
having our first meetings.
Okay. Have they appointed?
I know they have at least 3. I'm not sure if any more came
Yeah, I
forward.
think about 3 now.
Okay. Meeting minutes, planning board minutes for July 17, 2018. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at those?
Wait, I did not get a chance to please.
I'll take a minute to do that.
That's my bad.
So I guess I was technically absent because I wasn't here, but I had phoned in. So I show up in both absent and phoned in. I'm shown as members present. Kim phones in, and then I'm absent.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know.
You didn't,
Maybe
you didn't
that's
do
what
roll
you do.
call, so you were absent, I would say.
I don't know if that's what you do technically.
Physically here.
No.
You were absent, although you did phone in.
Yeah. So
But
am I
technically
absent?
speaking, you're
We're
absent.
here by phone.
Okay, so maybe release my name that I was not
Yeah.
absent. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was the way you did it. And because my phone kept cutting out, and thank you for getting me back on. I remember hearing something about signage for that gentleman that wanted the home business.
Oh, yeah.
Was that in? I
It
didn't see
wasn't
anything.
really a.
It was not an
It's
issue.
one of those A-frame fold-up ones.
It's
You
not
just-
It's not really a
it's
Oh,
sign.
so it's not nothing because I kind
Yeah.
of cut out. All right, so it
It's not a
wasn't.
permanent sign.
I just
so it
remember a lot
didn't-
of conversation on that.
Yeah,
Okay,
difference.
so nothing.
It was
sounded
talked
like the
about a
neighbors.
lot, though.
Huh?
I said it was talked about a lot.
That's what I mean. I didn't see anything in here. So I wasn't sure if it was if it happened, but I cut out too. So
Did you get this all off the video, Joan?
No, from
My
Joe's notes.
Oh, you had notes too.
Yeah.
Oh, you both did them?
Wow.
Yeah. She came to me first, and I was like, I got this.
I had them too. For either. Yeah.
Jeez.
I'm the one accountable, I guess.
Those
So.
were a lot better.
Very good.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, if nobody sees anything or doesn't want to make any changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'm gonna abstain because conflict of interests. They're my minutes. I wrote them. So anybody else wants to make a motion, they can feel free to.
I'll make a motion to approve them with the, I guess, that one change on the. Oh, is that a conflict of interest? I don't think it's a technical.
I have a motion to approve as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained?
Say.
Motion passes 5-0-1. Okay. All right. Any other business before the board this evening?
One thing.
Yes.
Greg Jeffries home. Oh, you don't have to. You can actually just sign this after the home occupation for Greg Jeffries.
Oh, it just needs to be signed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Doesn't need
that's
a
fine.
motion.
Yep.
Never mind.
That was from last meeting, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. All right. Jay, do you have anything else? Did you like to add this evening?
I don't think I mentioned you just briefly as we start to think about when we have time to start to think about things like site plan reg updates and zoning. That one thing I just mentioned to Mike earlier is that there's been a lot of changes around agricultural use and in particular agribusiness. And because this issue just came up recently, I had cause to look through the site plan regs and the ordinance, and we're not up to date. So it's just something that we wanted to think about, since obviously we have a lot of active agriculture still in town.
Now that you mentioned that, I promised
It is becoming
Kurt
a big
Schaefer,
thing now.
and I'll probably just send it to all of the people on the board. We had redone our chapter on, I believe it was the land use chapter on growth populations and how much land was available to build, and how many homes were still available to build if we didn't touch the farms at the conservation land. I met him at a Cub Scout meeting. So he was talking the number, and I said, that seems low compared to what we came up with Jen. So I will forward it to him and tell him what chapter it's in. Chapter 8, look at these pages. So if you guys are making decisions at a high level, you can see that, what was the number, 980 homes left to build, or whatever the number worked out
Yeah,
to
because I
be.
think we heard floating was 400.
Yeah, so let me get that. I promised it to Kurt, but I'll
Okay.
do you want me to just send it to Kurt? I don't want to.
You send it all the situation.
Oh, okay, I don't want to. They'll be like, "Who's this? What is she talking about?" All right, I'll send that chapter. I thought it was chapter 8, but I'll send that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, see, and this is my first time doing this. Joan, the budgets are submitted to the town administrator. Maybe Stephen, you can help me with this. So that's done on the 17th
Well,
of August?
he works the budgets. He's already sitting down to work some of the budgets, and so you should probably you can get a copy from him.
Okay.
And he takes last year's and sees and whatever the expenses were, and then.
Okay. So is the last year, is that what's submitted to the administrator, or is it something that new that we
He works
have
on them
to?
with Karen, and then
Okay.
you should get a copy before
The meeting? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. I saw that here. I was like, oh, just want to make sure we're doing it right. All right. All right. If there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 6-0-0. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.